All right, friends. Well, hey, welcome to our weekly Zoom call. I know it's a little slim today, but that's okay. I'm glad each and every one of you are on here. I know people are watching on Facebook, and people will definitely watch the recording because I know this is a huge issue for a lot of us in the work that we do. So, welcome, guys. John, do we have the um, do we have some opening announcements, or are we good? Can I just jump in?
Well, if you guys haven't had a chance to check it out, please make sure
Okay.
you take a look for the UIWI podcast featuring someone named Tommy Nixon. The podcast is called The Future is Here, and it's up to 6 episodes so far. Over 1,000 people have downloaded this and kind of checked it out, and so it's really talking about what the future of the church looks like, and we think it's just a valuable resource. So we'd encourage you guys to check that out. That's pretty much it, Tommy. I think we're good to go.
Cool. Well, guys, welcome. Like I said earlier, man, welcome to all of you guys. I said the brave ones who raise funds. So we know it's really tough. 2020 has been an incredibly difficult year, and we know it's changed everything. And so from the pandemic and changing that to all the uprisings, especially as that affects especially us who are in urban areas and care about those issues and live in those issues and are affected by those issues. It's been really tough. And so we wanted to get on and just make sure that you guys just had some guidelines, a roadmap that's in the midst of all this and how hard it is, that you're still engaging resource partners, and you're still engaging people to ask them to join in on what God has given you to do, because what you have been charged to do and what you have been charged to raise resources for is worth it, and it matters in the kingdom of God. But we also know it's really hard. And so I just wanted to give you guys some pointers, give you a framework, just to encourage you today on how are you engaging with those who are giving to your work and to your cause and your vision, and what does that look like? And so I have a slide deck for you. I'm not a huge slide deck guy, but I made this, and so don't be too amazed by how amazing this thing looks. Okay, but I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen with you guys, and we'll get into it. All right, look at that, friends. I know. Just let that soak in for a second, okay? I was able to put our logo in the background. I'm a big deal. So here it is. So as we get into this, continue to raise funds, especially during 2020, since everything has changed, I want to make sure the first thing that you guys are doing, if you haven't done this already, now I would encourage you to keep on doing it, but we really have to review your vision and your mission. Now, organizational development and fund development are symbiotic. And what I mean by that is they should be playing off of each other. So what happens is you were inspired, or you joined an organization and you guys run after school programs. Great. Well, then you're running your after school program, and you go and you ask somebody, hey, I need some resource, I need some money to continue to run this. And then they ask you, well, what's the percentage of your students that go to college? And you're like, I mean, some of them go, you know what I mean? Like you don't know, and that's okay. And so when they go, well, I'd really like to know that so that I can give. And so then you go back, organizational development, program design, and you go back and you go, okay, we need to figure that out. Is that one of the things we want to see happen? Is how many of our students are doing it? How do we measure our impact? And then you figure some of that stuff out, and you come right back to communicating that into your resource partners, and you go, hey, listen, we just figured out 80% of our students that go through our program go to college, and they go, I love that. I want to see it get to 90%. What would that cost? And you're like, okay, that's a good question. So you see how it goes back and forth. Organizational development and fund development are symbiotic. And when you go back and forth, that creates a better organization. So with that understanding, you have to review your vision and mission. And here are some questions at UYWI that our COO, Robert Aboides, had brought to us. And they're right here. And B, you can look at that. How are we making our mission and vision even more relevant or clear now for the future? Say your mission was all about, and this is for a lot of us, for the church, was all about gathering. Well, what are you going to do? That changes things. The world has changed. What does that look like? Does that change your mission? Does it change the vision of the world that you had, that you had put out there and asked people to join in on? And so you have to ask this question. Is it more relevant or clear now for the future? How are we going to change that? Do we need to change that? How are we going to maximize our lane now for the future? Understanding, like, what is your contribution to the kingdom? What's really your lane? And for some of us, you might be in that organizational space where you're still trying to figure that out. Now is a great time to figure that out, because you have more constraints. There's more things here. But with that, some of those barriers are actually can bring some real freedom and creativity to go, okay, what if we did this? What if we figured out a new way to reach our vision and mission? So ask those questions. How are we going to maximize that lane? How do we design now for a different future? Now, this one is tough, but you got to at least take a shot at it, because we don't know what it's going to be like. We don't, every other day they're opening schools, they're closing schools. They're you got to wear masks. Now you don't got to wear it. And depending on what state you're in and city and county and all that, it changes on the daily. And so that gets tough, but how do we design for this different future? Friends, things are not going to go back to normal. They're not. And they're just not going to. So we have to envision, okay, what could this look like? And I would encourage you, don't be afraid to try new things, take risks. And then two, asking, what will the new structures look like in the future? What are schools going to look like? What's after school programming going to look like? What is discipleship and mentorship going to look like in the future? Depending on, people's, what we're allowed to do, or what our people's fears are, or, whatever that looks like, we really have to look at that. We have to look at this, even like the fundraising landscape. What are things going to look like, after the election? Who knows? But you as a leader and as you're raising funds for this have to think about those kind of things. And so first you got to review your vision and mission. Are you still relevant? Does it still make sense in this time and space, in this context? And I realize that could be really painful, but we're leaders and we're called to make hard decisions. So you have to press into it. Number two, you got to review your programs. Okay. If organizational development and fundraising are symbiotic, you really have to look at your programs. Because it is, I'm sure you already know this, it's a tough sell to say, please fund our after school program, when you don't have any kids coming to your after school program. Like, that's just the reality of it. So does your programs even make sense? What do you need to cut? And because this is real. If you're looking at your vision and mission, if that's changed at all, what do you need to cut in your programming? What do you need to push to the forefront to ask people to join in on? What do you need to do differently? Hey, we're taking our whole program online, and it's going to take this. We're going to need more computer equipment. We're going to need this. We're going to need more mentors. So however you can draw people in to joining in on your programs and what you're doing. And the other place is, now's the time to have creative, new programming, to say, hey, we can no longer do this, or this model does not work anymore. Now we want to create something new. We're going to try this. Would you help us try this out? And I just think we're in a time where it's just important to try to figure those things out, and it's okay to take those risks. So review your programs. Number 3, rally your supporters, and you got to communicate. I am not great at this, and I want to put this out there. I actually struggle with this. I have a hard time, and luckily we're lucky in our organization. I have some people that are on a development team that can help me with this, right? But it was really important when the pandemic hit. One, we had to come up with, okay, here's the update. Here's what's going on. Here's where we're at. Here's how this is affecting us. And then we instituted a weekly donor email. Now, we didn't do that before. It was monthly. And so every week we got to come up with something to say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what you can pray for here. And it didn't have to be super fancy. It just is, this is what's going on. So you got to make sure that you're updating your supporters. If they haven't heard from you in a while, and you feel like bad because they haven't heard from you, so then you don't want to do it more, got to push past that, and you have to just update and be honest. I'm so sorry you haven't heard from me. Although it's been a difficult time, I've had a hard time communicating, but here's what's going on. Thank you for keeping us going and jumping in and helping us with what we're doing. So you want to communicate the difficulty, but you want to give hope. So you don't want to sound all just, it's just all despair, but you want to be really honest. Like we have taken a huge hit. We are working right now to figure out the vision, mission, and programs. Here's where we're at. So even when you haven't figured everything out yet, just let people know, hey, we're working on it. Would you pray for us? Hey, if somebody's out there that knows, that's good at strategy, or, that's ways that you could draw people in. So you want to communicate the difficulty, but you want to give hope. And friends, on a side note, part of that is just your own personal journey with that. Like, you want to be really authentic and honest at that. And if you don't have the hope, right? How is your time with God? Have you been pressing in? Are you asking for help? Have you taken space away to go and think about, okay, God, what do you want me to do next? Do we need to shut this down? Do we, give me the creativity, get your team together. There's a lot of deep work that needs to happen there, both personally and with your team, so that you can authentically go, this is really, really hard, but here's what we're going to do about it. I'm telling you, friends, now is the time. We need leaders right now. We need leaders that are brave and courageous just to go, I don't know if this is the perfect or right way to go, but here's where we're going, and you're asking people to join in with you. So you want to give your revision of your response and your direction. Okay, we got the team together. We've prayed. Here's our plan. This is what we're going to do, and this is what we hope it's going to do. And we need your help. We need you to join with us to reach this vision. That's super important. If you are still doing the same thing you did before pandemic, and you haven't addressed it, or you're not, there's no movement or shift, you're missing out. because people know how bad it is. They're experiencing it. But man, it gives hope when people lead like you guys, and you come out and you go, I know this is hard, but here's what we're going to do. And you just share what God's doing in the vision he's given you. It's extremely hard, but it's so, so important. The fourth thing in under rally your supporters is, I'd encourage you to create a community. So at UYWI, we're actually in a campaign right now, and it's to get urban allies. Now, urban allies, that is our monthly donor campaign. That's our monthly donor community of resource partners. And so urban allies, it's a special group of people that we want to treat in a special way. We want to say, you guys are so important to helping us do this, and this, to reach the vision of what we're trying to do through this time. And as an organization, you guys help do this, and we are so thankful for you. and you start to make them feel that which they are, they're so vital to reaching everything that you guys are doing. That when you have a win as an organization, it's their win too. And you have to communicate that. So you have to get buy-in. Like we really couldn't do this without you. We desperately need you. You're in the fight with us. And so when however you can make them feel like, man, like when they did that campaign and we reached that thermometer, which we'll talk about in a minute, right? When we reached that goal and this many leaders got trained and this many young people got reached with the gospel, that we all celebrate that because we're all part of the community. We couldn't do what we do without urban allies. Like, and we need a whole lot more to continue what the work that we're doing into the future. Our monthly supporters are our base. And so we got to communicate with them. We got to make them feel like, okay, they're part of this community. And so you want to create a community. And then it's your job to make sure that you are communicating with that community, that you're letting them in, that you're starting a prayer time, that you're letting them into what's going on, how you could use their help, but also about what their help actually does. We also created a prayer time on Wednesdays that we invite all of our supporters to. And that just gets them deeper on the inside. We also are working right now on an online platform that we can invite our urban allies in on, and they can actually see the work with our leaders. So buy-in is key on that. Number 4. Okay, so that was the setup, right? So if you haven't reviewed your vision and mission, if you haven't looked over your programs and been like, okay, what are we going to do? Which I'm sure you guys have been doing. And then you have that communication and you have a calendar for that and you're regularly doing that. And here's the thing too, that helps me. Sometimes what stops me is like, if it's not good enough, like I want it to be perfect or look a certain way. Friends, just pick up the phone, write the email, like just get into the habit of doing it and it'll get better. Let people hear from you or attempt, because it's also a tough time right now for communication, but you got to at least try and keep on going. So number 4, asking for support. Okay, so here's where we get into it, right? So you've done all that hard work ahead of time, or you're going to do it. And that kind of stuff is really important. What you get to asking for support. Number 1, or A, create a master grant. This is what that is. This is something that I just started doing only a couple of years ago. And it helps with that organizational development and fund development. I was tired of every time a foundation or I found a grant that we could apply to, I got tired of having to rewrite and find the information. And yeah, have you guys ever experienced that where you're like, what's the budget on that again? And you have to redo it. And then, what's the description for that? And how many kids are we reaching? Or I got tired of doing that. So I created one master document that had everything that I've ever had a foundation ask me or a possible resource partner ask me. And I wrote it all down. So this is what it looks like. And this is hard work, but I'm telling you, friends, if you put time into it every year, and especially right now as everything's changing, it'll give you a really clear look at what you do and how to share that with people. So here's what it looks like. You start with a case statement. Here's the problem. State your problem. What are you trying to solve? This is my problem. This is my case statement. For us, simply, there's 1 million plus young people leaving the church every year. We want to stop that, right? And we think that next generation urban ethnic leaders are the ones that are perfectly positioned to address that. Urban leaders like you guys, I think, are the frontline tip of the spear of that. So that's my case statement. Then I say, here's the problem. Here's my vision, my mission. And then I go into my programs. Each program has a description. Each program has a metrics to it, a baseline, a target, and a method of validation. Now, what that means is I run an after-school program. Great. It's online right now. Awesome. Our baseline is 5 students right now. Okay. With your support, our target, we want to reach 15 by the end of the year. Great. Here's how much that'll cost. Our method of validation is, means like I'll know that I'll have 15 by the sign up list. It's simple. And then this is how much it would cost. Okay. Right. And then hopefully you have a budget. Okay. That's a whole nother website, right? I mean, webinar. You have a budget that helps explain that. I do that for every single thing that we do. And if you guys have been around me or I've coached you at all, you know that we put that into a process. We have a leadership process. Again, that's another webinar, but I encourage you that your programs are in a process and you're saying, this is what we want to actually create at the end of this. For us, we want healthy leaders that are growing in their capacity and their impact in urban spaces with urban youth. Those are the metrics that I'm looking at. Okay. Once you get all that done, then it's, if you get a grant, if there's an RFP or whatever, and you can give it to somebody, or you're meeting with a major resource partner, you could sit down and you could go, here, this is everything we do. And then you use that for all your communication. Like, this is what we're about. And then you get stories from that. So does that make sense? Master grant. I'd really encourage you guys to do that. 1, 2, I know, especially early on in doing nonprofits, there were times when I was doing all the work and I still felt lost. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that. Like, man, what do we do? What do we, you know what I mean? And then you're always trying to reinvent it, but it's there. So I encourage seeing that. Asking for support. So once you have all that, then you can pick and choose, like, this is what it does. And this has to happen in the world. This is our vision and mission. Here's how we're going to reach it. It inspires people. And then asking for support, you want to share stories. Share a story of what's actually going on. I had a conversation with a youth worker. They told me this. Our training helped them reach 30 more kids. And one of those kids, here's their story. You have to share stories because that's what's most compelling. So as you try to figure out new things and and programming and all that, you want to share the stories of impact. And so you want to share those stories. So in your communication, when you share these things, always have a story to share, and work on that story to be 2 minutes at the most. Those are the best stories, right? Where somebody can you can share that story. It's a small blurb in a newsletter. It's a quick video. You just want to share those stories. It's in a conversation. So when you're asking for support, you want to share the story of impact. Next is clear impact. And I find this with a lot of smaller nonprofits. You're doing a lot of activity, but you haven't thought about the impact. What happens when somebody engages with you? What's the clear impact? That's why in the master grant, I'm pressing you guys to talk about what's your baseline and your target. Those are start to get into some metrics. But when you talk about impact, you're like, hey, through our work in the last 10 years, this community has seen 100 young people go to college, where 10 years ago, we only had 5. That's a great impact. One, go back to organizational development. It takes organizational development to actually get that kind of number, or to be intentional in doing that, and then working out your program to actually produce those kind of results. So you want clear impact, right? When you make an ask, if you can give to this, this is what we hope will happen, right? Okay. Next is clear ask. I don't know how many times I've seen people be passionate about their vision and mission programs. They tell great stories, and then they don't make the ask. I've done this before. And I get it. You get nervous. You're sitting across the table from somebody. Maybe you know them well or not. They have what seems like everything you need, which you're just inviting somebody to join in on what God's up to. But I understand the feeling of it. And then you don't actually ask. We need $50,000. That's a scary ask, right? I need you to be a monthly donor at $100 a month. You have to ask clear asks. So even when you're asking on, when you're sending out communications online, social media, those kind of things, you need to make really clear asks. Right now, we need 80 urban allies to give at least $25 a month so that we can fuel our 8 network leaders and their networks across the country, so that leaders have everything they need to reach more youth with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Will you please fuel each of those networks? And they're called fuel networks. You see what I did right there? Yeah. So, so it's clear. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I'd like to I could do $25 a month. No problem. It's a clear ask. So make sure you have clear asks. Next, connecting people to need. This is a little bit like right now, Americans we got a lot of issues, but one of the things about Americans is we are extremely generous when it comes to giving. We really are. And right now people are giving still a ton of money, and resources to causes. And one of the things that we've seen a high engagement in is that kind of crisis response, connecting people to need. And so if you have an opportunity to meet like real basic needs during this time, those kind of crisis response needs, do it. And ask people to join in, and ask people to give to that, and set that up, and make the metric, and set the program up, and what kind of impact is it going to make? Like all those kind of things. People are giving to that. And that might be something that you might really want to do. I know for the organization that I came from, Solidarity, who's run by a guy named Kevin Wong, that's one of my best friends. They've actually done a really great job. They ran after-school programs and did community development. Well, shoot, what are they going to do right now? Well, they've been able to move and really respond to how do you help the community during this time. And they've shifted, and the type of impact they're having in their communities is massive. And people are funding them to do the crisis response for food and supplies for their neighbors, and also to help their immigrant neighbors who don't get any support from the government or anything like that. So that's a beautiful thing. And they've really shifted and gone, okay, we had to cut which programs didn't make sense. We had to look at our vision and mission. Does this still fit within it? It does. And let's shift. And they've asked for people. And I think they raised it's like 50 grand doing that. That's incredible. Within a couple months. That's awesome. So think about that as well. Lastly on that, or not lastly, but next was don't forget the thermometer. What I mean by this, friends, is people love a challenge, and they love when they see the update. And so we love using, right now we have the fuel meter, right? The gas gauge for our campaign right now that shows like how fueled each liter is. But a simple thermometer to say, listen, help us get here. And this is what here is. And then that's your vision, your programs, all that kind of stuff that's going to be in your master grant. The thermometer is really important. It helps people go, hey, other people believe in this. I believe in this. We can get there. And when you get to a certain place, there's a psychological thing that happens where people are like, okay, I just want to see them get there. Dang it. I just want to see the thermometer, right? So there's some of that happens, but really, people love a challenge, and they love to see it when we reached it. You can celebrate it, and then you share those stories again of what that support went and did, and it's that cycle over and over again. The thermometer is important, but also what I mean by that is that you have to have those clear asks, those clear metrics, and then you have to celebrate well. When people see that, you have to then share with them, we did it, because that's true. You can't do this work on your own. You need supporters. So don't forget the thermometer. And lastly, for number 4 on asking for support, you have to make the ask. Like you have to ask, friends. Now's not the time, one, to be a leader that shies away from barriers and problems and everything that's going on. We have to push forward. And friends, you got to make the ask. You got to sit, on that phone or that Zoom call now, or, in the letter you're writing or on social media. But you have to just sit there, look at somebody and say, I need $100. I need $100,000. I need whatever that is. You have to ask, because here's the thing I want to remind you. What you do in the kingdom of God is worth it. Those young people are worth it. Your program is worth it. Your staff is worth it. The mark you're making in the kingdom of God is absolutely worth it. But you're the one tasked with having to ask. Do it. You have to ask. It's so important. Do not let the fear of a rejection or a no stop you from that. Look, it's just a no. And usually that just means not now. Sometimes it's a no, but a lot of times it's a not now. Okay, great. And look, God's going to provide, but you have to ask. All right. Next is this is a little bit more practical as you make those asks. Fourth quarter campaign. Guys, the fourth quarter, so October, November, December, that's a time that a lot of giving happens, okay? And it's an important time for you to get out there and ask. So we're in a perfect time right now for you to start constructing what that fourth quarter campaign looks like. For us, we're constructing ours right now, and we're looking at okay, well, what's the theme that we want to share? What are the stories that we can share about what our cause has been doing? What does the communication look like there, right? How much money do we need to raise? So first, you want to frame your cause. And when I mean frame your cause, depending on your size of organization or the pivots you've made, decide what you really need funding for. So talk about that. If it's a specific program or if it's your whole organization, frame it in a way that people can get it really quick. So I'll let you on the inside track. We're looking for our fourth quarter to make it all about discipleship. It's a core issue for us. And we want to frame it around that. We want to say, would you fund discipleship? And you want to frame that cause. And then here are all the things we do to support people discipling young people. Would you give to this? And here's how much we need. That goes to letter B, create your metrics. Friends, this goes back to the thermometer. You can't just be like, I need all the money in the world. I just need support. How much support? What does it go to? How many students will it reach? When you reach those students, what will it do in their lives? You have to create those metrics, and then you have to present those metrics to people to join in. So, what does that look like? And here's the other thing. You need a budget, so and you need to be able to measure these things to go, how much money came in last year? How far are we off of our budget right now? Not only that is, what do you think you can reach? You might need $1 million by the end of the year, but you don't have that capacity to actually even reach that. Okay, so if you ask for $1 million and you have $10,000 come in, that's an ugly look, man. Don't do that. You know what I mean? You really actually want to think through what has the work I've been put through. Where do we think we can get, and what's a stretch goal for that to see God continue to work? It's all about, putting in the work on that. Does God give? Dude, I just had a gift just drop in our lap the other day. Thank you, Lord. That's huge. but I have a responsibility to put in the work and the relationships to ask for that. Plan out the communication calendar. Guys, get on a calendar and put out every time you're going to write that email, send that letter, make those calls. You need a full-on calendar for the end of the year for that fourth quarter. I'm going to post this on Facebook. I'm going to make these calls. I'm going to set up these appointments. You have to calendar all of that out. Now's the time to do that. Next is to diversify your funding streams. When you think about your fourth quarter campaign, there's a couple different areas you want to think about. One, major donors. Who are the people that can give more, and how can you sit down with them and talk through your master grant or everything that you're going through, and how can you make the direct ask? I need $5,000 for this. So major funders, that's one area. Another area is monthly donors. How can you grow that, or how can you ask your monthly donors to increase their giving? You also have, social media pushes like Giving Tuesday. Okay, what are you going to do online to promote what you're doing, and how do you ask people to give to that? And so you have these like different segmented groups of people, and then you also have foundations and grant. We have a lot of our grants are due right in fall. So we're gearing up for that with what? Our master grant. We have all our metrics in line. I've thought through it. We're ready to go, write all that stuff out, and then, pray that God moves, right? And so make sure you're diversifying your funding streams. Another area for that is earned income. If you have that ability, that's awesome. Continue to push into that. And then lastly on this is matching funds are key. If you if you have some other partners that have a little bit more resources to give, man, ask for matching funds. Go, listen, would you give us would you match up to $5,000, $10,000 if we raise this during this time? And if they say yes, you're like, great. Then you, in all your communications, you go, for every dollar you give, up to $5,000 or $10,000 is matched. This is a huge incentive for people to give. So if you're not using matching funds, or you're not asking people for matching funds, you're missing out, because this is a huge part of the fourth quarter push. And so this is all planned out. Now's the time to do it, friends. You have to put in that earlier work that I talked about. I can't tell you how important that is, because people want to give to stuff that's meaningful, that's thought out, that's been thought through, and that will actually make an impact. And what you guys are doing is making an impact, but you got to do the work to be able to communicate that well. Lastly, friends, here's some things for you to remember. You can only do what you can do. Okay? Now, the hard part of this is that you actually have to do it, though, right? I know, as being an executive director, CEO, doing this for almost 20 years, I know you sit down to write your letter, your year-end letter to ask for support, and all of a sudden you're there cleaning your desk, right? All of a sudden you're like, oh, you know what? I need to check on the program. I need to go see about this kid. Because you'll come up with any excuse not to sit down and write that letter. You'll come up with the excuse not to call the resource partner or that possible person who'll go. And so you do have to do the work. But listen, when you have this plan, especially this fourth quarter plan, you've done all the work, all you can do is do it. That's all you can do. All you can do is make the phone call. All you can do is ask. And then it's up to the Lord and that person if they want to engage. What else can you do? That has helped me millions of times get through just going, Tommy, the fear of this rejection or someone not giving or not meeting this or that stops me from actually doing the work. You got to talk yourself into and pray through, I can only do what I can do. And here's what's beautiful. I always follow that prayer up with, and I can do nothing apart from him. friends, as believers, I live in that tension between, yes, the Lord owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and he can give, and the tension between, and yet he's called me to live a life of dependence where I push into places where I have to come back and go, I don't think I can do this. Fundraising is the beautiful connection of both of those things, right? Where you have to do the work, but God's going to show up. Like, he's good. Does he always show up the way I want him to? No. Last year, we were in the red in an embarrassing way. And that's on me. But did God still provide? Yeah. Are we still here doing work? Yes. Is he good and continues to bring people out of the woodworks? Yes. Do I have a responsibility to follow what the people that have stopped giving? Yes. Those are hard conversations. It's my work. So what I do is I see this as part of our spiritual growth as well. And this is fundraising can be a beautiful, wonderful discipleship as you not only call people in to join in with what he's doing and to join in with you and what God's up to, but it's a beautiful place for me to feel the dependence that I desperately need on God, because it's hard. And you know what, guys? I don't know what it's going to be like in the fourth quarter. No idea. But I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to play that plan out, and I'm going to watch God do what God's going to do. Okay? What else can we do? Nothing. That's all you can do. So I just want to remind you guys of that and encourage you guys, what you do, right? The brave ones who raise funds. I'm going to coin that because that just came out of my mouth earlier, but we need to hashtag that mug, make a meme or something. But you guys, like, what you do is extremely hard and it's beautiful. And so I hope that was really helpful to you guys. Again, we can get so deep on so many of this stuff, but I just wanted to make sure that for some of our leaders who maybe are running smaller nonprofits or you're just starting out, this is just a good kind of step-by-step, some overviews for things to help you guys out. So at this time, we want to just like open it up. What are your questions? What are you struggling with? What is it? What are your thoughts? Or if you have specific questions about that, please feel free to go ahead and share on that. And you can unmute and just ask.
Tommy, there was a question in the chat that said from Michael Gutierrez. Do
Yeah.
you recommend changing the mission vision during this time, or just adapting the programs to fit the mission vision? Maybe we could start there.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. Part of it is, matters on what your mission and vision is, because it's like, is it still relevant to right now? Part of it is like for a lot of our vision and mission, they probably can stay, but you have to re-envision about what that looks like, right? And then do your programs make sense to that vision and mission? So there's a couple ways to go about it. One, I would look at it and think through, like, how does this make sense right now? And what could it mean? What could the possibilities mean? Because, your vision, for us, our vision is to fuel urban leaders to reach urban youth, right? With the gospel, like, okay, it's pretty basic there. And so, yeah, that still makes sense now, but how we're going to do it is going to look different. And so, our mission still makes sense. So that's what I would do, man. I would take a look at it, and then I would run it by the people that work with you. And you're obviously, brother, you're welcome to send it to me and go, hey, what do you think about this? So. Are we looking? Okay, look at the chat. Elizabeth asked, what digital donor software programs would you recommend? Man, I have like a love-hate relationship with donor software. And I honestly, right now we use Donor Perfect. In the past, we used at Solidarity, we used something from Blackbaud that was okay. Mostly what I would say to people is, if you already have one, I'd use that one, because switching over to another one is a lot of work and it's a pain. But so far, like Donor Perfect's been okay. There's really expensive ones like Razor's Edge, but mostly it's like whatever digital software can help you make sure that you understand how to keep in contact and how to thank people. That's basically what you need. But we use Donor Perfect and it works. And but each one I find just takes it takes time and someone dedicated to understand and learn it. And that's the thing that frustrates me. They're never intuitive. Robert Boyd, as our COO, wants to build his own. So maybe that's our that's going to be our earned income. I don't know. We'll sell you it. So, how long are our newsletters every month? You know what? I find they're only a couple paragraphs, and our mailers, the things that we're mailing out, are only a couple paragraphs, a lot of pictures, and yeah. And so we do that. Especially, here's the other part of all that is, in your communication, understand who you're writing to, and we're having a hard time with that. Here's why: because by and large, our resource partners that I inherited, that have been fueling us for a long time, are in an older generation. They love newsletters. They love the physical, but so we have to continue to send those out, right? But we also have those millennials, and then you have the generation coming up that we also want to engage, and they're not reading emails, and they're not so we have to segment our communication to make sure that we're hitting the audience right. And so we've done some work on going, okay, what is the persona of the person that we're trying to reach? Who is that audience, and who are they? What's their demographic? What do they like? And there's a ton of research out there to help you do that. But that's how long our newsletters are. They're not very long, and we usually try to just tell stories in those, and along the lines of what we're up to and what the campaign is. Anybody else?
Tommy, I might just share a bit of perspective.
I love it. Hey, Dennis, tell everybody who you are, though, like in relationship to UYWI.
Well, I'm Dennis Neal. I'm on the board of UYWI. I have been for, several years. But before that, I was a resource partner with UYWI. Obviously, I'm at the older end of the demographic that Tommy addressed, although I actually prefer to get like a video report rather than written things. So
you've always been hip, though, Dennis. Like,
but I think just a couple of realities to be aware of in the resourcing world is there are people who will give based on an emotional plea, and then there are people who give based on an intellectual decision. Much of what I heard Tommy describe, when you're making a plea, when you're saying, help us with this problem, that's an emotional plea, as opposed to presenting a project or an opportunity that says, here's what we're going to do. Here's the expected income. Here's the expected impact. Here are the outcomes. All directed towards the resource partner being able to make an assessment of the return on the Kingdom investment that he's making. Giving to Kingdom work is much like investing in the financial world. You're looking for you're looking to maximize the return on your investment. And so people who are good stewards and are inclined to give want to maximize the return on their investment. And let's face it, there's more needs out there than well, there's not more needs than there are the means to meet those needs, because God has all the cattle on 1,000 hills. But the fact of the matter is, every one of you is competing with other ministries. And you're going to people who typically they're probably going to give to multiple things. And so they have a decision to make. Who am I going to give to? Well, part of that decision, part of it's going to be based upon perhaps the emotional plea that maybe Tommy described. But if they're serious about their stewardship, they're going to look for those opportunities that maximize kingdom impact in their view. So as you're thinking about what you're going to ask for and how you're going to present that, present it in a compelling way that is going to convince that potential resource partner that this opportunity is going to create a good return on investment, a good kingdom return on investment. Because if some don't see that, then they're not apt to give, because there could be some other more compelling, better opportunity to give to somebody else. So it's just a perspective to keep in mind. And I would say that decision-making rationale, the larger the gift you're seeking, the more that they're going to make that intellectual decision as opposed to that emotional decision. You can get a lot of people who give, it'll hit their heart and they'll give a smaller gift. But if it's a larger amount of money that they're thinking about and they have alternatives, then they're going to think about what's going to give them the maximum kingdom return on investment.
So good, man. So yeah, guys, listen up, because Dennis has been around, especially on kingdom work, for a long time. In fact, he's also part of something else as well that works overseas. And I asked him, hey, could you give me, what does your guys' thing look like? And he gave me a prospectus, and it was a book on each one of their projects, and it was phenomenal. And it made that beautiful ask like that. So thanks so much, Dennis, man. I love that. Friends, that's why I would encourage you too on the master grant. You want to think through those things. That's why you think through the baselines and the targets, method of validation. Like, okay, well, what does this do in response to that case statement? What's the problem you're trying to solve? It's definitely kind of like the beginning of what Dennis is talking about. And so that's super good, man, to hear it from Dennis, and super thankful for you, Dennis, for being on the board and for speaking in. And anything else for you guys? Or any other questions or concerns or input?
You hear me?
Yes, sister.
Okay, I think I'm just trying to make sure my audio is connected. I think what I have been coming across a lot has just been, and thank you, by the way, everything that you both shared is just like literally gold. It's a big generational divide. The reason why I came with my question in regards to just like the donor software, like trying to get the rest of our board like into the digital platform, if you may, just because it's like we're falling behind, guys. Like, we need to make this transition. And so I don't know if maybe it's more of a question or just kind of like how to navigate that, because there's a big like pool like to not move forward, because it's just like this big unknown, because it's not a part of their everyday life because of just that generational divide, if that makes sense. So
yeah, I mean, part of it is you want to meet your partners where they're at, and it takes a lot of work to okay, how do you want to get how do you want us to engage with you? That's a great question. We've asked that. Just, hey, what do you like most? And like if it was Dennis, he'd be like, man, just send me a video of, of what you're doing. I love that. Other people might, say like, well, no, I love letters. Other people, this is a big one. Don't ever invite me to an event. I don't, just so I don't ever want to go to your banquet. You know what I mean? And I appreciate that. That's great, but it takes time and energy to do that, and to find that out, but it's totally worth it. And so as far as the donor management, really is just about how are you tracking all this stuff? It's just the tools to help you do that, to be able to segment that, and make sure that, these people are getting mailings and these people are getting emails, and everybody's going to, so it's tough work, but, don't count out any one of these generations. And because what you do is important and they need to know about it. So super important. I think somebody asked, Cecilia asked, do you send your video updates through email and social media? Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and here's something that I learned too. I know when you send out one thing, it's like, oh, well, we already talked about that. People, continue to send out, and share the, certain stories, because it takes people a while for them to like, oh yeah, I did hear that, or I did remember that, or, oh yeah, you know what, I wanted to give and I forgot. I'm so glad you followed up on that email or that call. So just because you send one thing out doesn't mean that people see it or read it. If you guys use MailChimp or some type of email system, you can see the open rates on that. Have you ever looked at that? Yeah, they're tiny, but that's just part of it. And so you want to try to figure that out. Yeah. So anyway, well, guys, let's just wrap up our time, and thanks so much for being on and hanging with us. I'm glad this was helpful for some of you guys. A couple things just as we wrap up before you guys go. We are actually going to be doing Zoom calls. We've been doing these national Zoom calls for, John, 16 weeks?
This is 17.
Okay, so 17 weeks, and I think we've taken off one, right, John?
Yeah, around there. Yeah.
Okay, so we've been charging. We're going to do this for 4 more weeks, and then we're going to go to a monthly national Zoom call training, which will be maybe a little bit deeper, or, we'll be looking at that. But we have 4 more weeks, and so next week, we're going to be having Bobby Lopez is actually going to come back on, talking about sharing the gospel in this moment and the future. And so what is evangelism looking like? And they're doing some amazing things. And so he's going to be on sharing that next week, Thursday, July 23rd at 4 p.m. We also, guys, we have resources for you. So we want you to use them. Go to UYWI.org, check them out. We have Developing Digital Disciples, the Leadership Journey, and the Discipleship Toolkit is still on there. So and all super relevant stuff, and we're making some more things for you. So check that out. Again, shameless plea, check out the Futures Here podcast, and I think you'll enjoy it. So check that out. It's on all platforms. Just go ahead, check that out. And then just remember, you can look at all our Zoom calls from the past. Trauma-informed discipleship. What does worship look like in the future? Sabbath is resistance, which I know some of you guys need. Michael, you're doing it, I think. So aren't you? Yeah, you did a sabbatical. Good job. And so there's that. And then also, friends, here I'll model what we talked about today. We have an Urban Ally campaign going on right now. And so you can fuel our leaders nationwide. We have 8 networks that we built up where we resource, we give training, and we support them so that they can support leaders on the ground to reach more youth with the gospel, especially during this time. And so we're looking for, we needed 80 Urban Allies, at least $25 a month. We've gotten 10 so far, so we need 70 more. So if we've been a blessing to you, and we've been doing this for over 25 years, would you consider being an Urban Ally for at least $25 a month? And so put that out there to you guys. and would ask you to join in and be an urban ally, and then you can see what it's all about on the inside. Sound good? All right. Well, let's pray, and we'll end our time. Lord, thank you so much, God. And we do thank you that you do own all the cattle, you own all the resources, and you've been so good, Lord. You have provided millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars just for me and the organizations that I've run, which is incredible. And it's not because I'm a great fundraiser. It's because you are good and you're faithful to us when we respond to your call. Lord, thank you so much for all of us who have the joy and opportunity to give. Thank you, Lord, that I get to give, Lord. And thank you for all those that give to all of our work, Lord. So bless them, Lord. Continue to provide for us. Thank you for all these leaders. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
All right, friends. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great night.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Peace. Bye, Casey.